All right, my name is K-A-A, the host of KaaTruths Podcast. And today I want to talk to you about the former Dunamis, the ex-Dunamis pastor that I hosted a couple of days ago, Abraham Daniels. That video has generated a lot of topics, a lot of controversies, and I didn't want to say anything about it earlier, but I felt I should just say something. And before I start talking about Abraham, the Dunamis Church, and all of that, and Dr. Paul Enenche, I want to please make something very clear. KaaTruths Podcast is just a platform that gives people the opportunity to tell their stories, defend their beliefs. And I, as a host, do not have any opinion. I am not the judge, I'm not the jury, I'm not an executioner. I have no opinion in any matter that comes to KaaTruths Podcast whatsoever. Mine is to sit down, ask questions, listen to the stories. It is your responsibility to digest these things and be able to tell which one is the truth and which one is not. It is not my responsibility to do that for you. All right. And if you're blaming me, because I've, read some comments, some have been sending me threads, even though it's not important, because those who are sending these threads are very hungry people who have not even been able to feed themselves, and they are coming to fight for God or for their daddy Jew. When I see such comment, it's funny, it's comic to me. But it's like when you're blaming me, it's like you blaming Mark Zuckerberg or the owner of Facebook, or saying that the owners of YouTube, TikTok, and the rest of them should be blamed because someone is using their platform to tell their stories, defend their beliefs, or do whatever it is that pleases them. Or you blaming Dr. Paul Enenche for letting a criminal come to his church, or letting someone, evil politicians or whatever it is, to come to his church. But the truth is that Dr. Paul Enenche do not determine who comes to his church and who does not. He simply is the general overseer of that church. Whether you are a native doctor, that church is open for you. And at KaaTruths, whether you are a native doctor, KaaTruths is open for you. Dunamis Church is open for criminals to worship. KaaTruths Podcast is open for anyone, regardless of your belief. Come and tell us why we should believe your own belief. Come and tell us why we should do what you do. Come and teach us. That is what KaaTruths is all about. When you go to my my personal page, you will see my personal opinions. And it's funny because I have hosted a couple of other religious leaders, and every time they come here, they also try to preach to me, to convince me, to convert me to their own, way of worship. I simply listen to them and I say, thank you. Olumbo people came here, they gave me their books. I say, thank you. But I have maintained my neutrality because I understand that once I take any position, once I begin to, also impose my own opinions on anyone, I will no longer have the moral right to interview anyone. I can't be a Christian and I interview a native doctor. You will expect me to be biased, of course. But if I do not belong to any religious body, any organization, if I don't hold any opinion, even if I belong, it is my private stuff, I will reserve or have maintained that moral right to interview anyone. And that is what I do at KaaTruths Podcast. Now, to tell you how people think, when I first hosted Ebedamina, there is no one I have asked the kind of questions I asked Ebedamina. In fact, the first time I hosted him, we talked about the Bible. At the end of the day, people felt I asked so many questions. His followers felt I asked him a lot of questions, and I was asking questions as if I did not believe in him. They were not comfortable with it, and they started insulting me. Now, the people from all that religious, from other churches, like Dunamis, the Catholics, and the rest of them, majority of them were supporting me because of the way I asked Reverend Damina his questions. Now, when I hosted Father Oloma of the Catholic Church, people who were against me when I hosted Abel Damina and Dunamis, Christ Embassy, and the rest of them started supporting me because of the kind of questions I asked Reverend Father Oloma about Catholic. And the Catholic members who were supporting me when I hosted Abel Damina started attacking me. When I hosted the Olumbo people, all of these other members of other denominations were eliminated. They said, you asked these questions. This Olumbo man doesn't know what he's talking about. They even insulted the man. Now they were supporting me because it was the tone of the Olumbo people. When I faced what is it called? Dunamis. Those who were against me during the Ebedamina time, during the Olumbo time, during the Father Oloma time, they started supporting me. So you see how crazy it is. And I did not even say anything about Dunamis. I simply interviewed an ex-pastor. So people do not actually want the truth. They like the truth when it is not against them. If it is against Mr. B, it is fine. If that light is channeled or focused on Mr. C, it is fine. But once it's facing them, once that light of truth is being channeled against them, they hate the truth, they hate anyone who is saying it, or they hate anyone who is even asking the question. So when I look at some of these things, it's funny, but because I understand that is how religion makes most people behave. So now let's talk about Abraham Daniels, the ex-pastor, and the Dunamis Church, and Dr. Paul Enenche. So before we talk about it, please look at this letter on the screen. When I interviewed the ex-pastor, we sent an invitation letter to the Dunamis Church. We sent it via email and WhatsApp, asking them, letting them know that we interviewed their ex-pastor. And these were the allegations that he raised. That he raised some, allegations. And we would want, in fact, let me read that letter so that you will understand what I'm talking about. The letter says, request for interview with Dunamis Church representative. A few days ago, we had the privilege of hosting Mr. Abraham Daniel on our podcast, KaaTruths. During the interview, Mr. Daniel identified himself as a pastor previously associated with Dunamis Church and made several significant claims regarding the church and its spiritual leader, Dr. Pastor Paul Enenche. As a neutral platform, KaaTruths Podcast does not assume the role of judge, jury, or executioner. Our mission is to provide an open and unbiased space where individuals can share their perspective, clarify misunderstanding, and present their knowledge freely. In light of this, we believe it is essential to hear from Dunamis Church to provide a balanced view on the matters raised by Mr. Daniel. We respectfully invite a high-ranking pastor or official with knowledge of the allegation to grant us the honor of an interview. This will ensure that the church's perspective is heard and given due consideration by our audience. We are committed to facilitating a respectful and fair dialogue. Please let us know your availability or if there are any specific requirements to coordinate this interview. Thank you for considering our request. We look forward to your response. This was the letter we sent to Dunamis. Till today, we have not gotten any response. So when people came and say, did you ask Dunamis? Did you even care to hear the Dunamis part of the story? It's funny because you don't know how I like being very professional in everything I'm doing. When I invite anyone to my podcast, before we even start, if it is a story like Abraham Daniels, if you ask him, he will tell you. The first thing I told him, don't say what you can't defend. Only state what you have proof of. That was what I told him before the podcast. So I am not against anyone. KaaTruths Podcast platform is open for everyone. I simply ask questions so that you can listen to questions, hear stories, hear some of these things, and be able to learn. I am not against it. I am a friend to everyone. And if you don't want to be my friend, it is fine. But stop saying things. Stop, misinterpreting what KaaTruths Podcast is all about. And concerning what Abraham is going through now, the truth is, I would say it very categorically, it is unchristlike for a pastor of Dr. Paul Enenche's standing and prestige to be using his power to, intimidate, harass, and oppress Abraham Daniels. Abraham has his own issues. In fact, I feel he's entitled. He has entitlement mentality. I don't know. He has not done anything to me, so I wouldn't say anything about it. But I've seen some videos, especially the video from Very Dark Man. So, but that is not my concern. He has not done anything to me, so I wouldn't say anything about that. But regardless of what Abraham must have done, as a pastor, I expect you to embody love, embody, what Christ represents. What do you preach? That is what I expect. I understand you can get angry. Anyone can get angry. Of course, I can get angry and all of that, but I am not a pastor. And as a pastor who teaches forgiveness, who teaches, all of those things that you teach in church, just like Christ said, if they slap you one cheek, you should turn the other. I feel it is not right. And even if you want to prosecute, or if you want to go against Abraham Daniels in a very legal way, then you should do it in a legal way. Because the whole thing, the way it's happening, today they arrested him, the next day he's already in prison. Which court was it tried? Which court? And I also want to tell the police people who are being used to perpetuate some of these acts to please desist from it. It doesn't make any sense. We are not saying you should not do your work as policemen, but we are saying you should not allow yourself to be a tool of oppression for the rich against the poor. It does not make sense. So I am appealing to you, Dr. Paul Enenche, to please forgive Abraham. And then again, the public should understand that Abraham already had his case before coming to KaaTruths Podcast. So KaaTruths Podcast is not what is causing the issue. That is not true. In fact, he said it in the video that he got an invitation by the police and that he was going to honor the invitation the next day. It was that invitation that is how he was detained. All right, so it is not a podcast video. We already having issues before he even granted the interview. I thank you for watching this video, and I know that a lot of you are not going to watch to this point before making your comment. But be calming down. Be calming down. Calm down and listen to voice of reasoning. Stop behaving like a tout because of religion. Jumping from coming to my inbox to threaten me, you're wasting your time. You're wasting your time. And I've said it categorically clear that on this page, I will never block anybody. So whatever you say on this page, you're not going to be blocked. I will look and pass. It is not my business. It doesn't bother me. Stop wasting your time to do it. At KaaTruths Podcast, I'm going to interview everyone, whether you like them or not. In fact, please, I'm also looking for the wife of Abraham Daniels. If you have a way I can reach her, I want to interview her, I want to hear her own side of the story. That is what KaaTruth is all about. Thank you.